Hello and welcome to the Unforced Error, the Australian Open Preview 2023. We are currently a couple of hours away from the start of the competition. We are about 8 o'clock here on a Sunday night, which makes it about 7 o'clock or thereabouts in Melbourne, where the first round action is only a couple of hours away. The draws are out and the media day is done. So we will do a quick preview of the men's and women's and talk about some of the injuries, some of the contenders, and hopefully get excited for the tennis ahead. So about 128 players on both sides, or thereabouts, and in 2 weeks we will be down to one. So it's very exciting. All the talking is nearly done, and we're nearly ready for some action. So in terms of the draws, we'll just look at each quarter and we'll pick out some of the top seeds and potential early matchups and stuff like that, because we don't have time to go through absolutely everyone, and we'll have a quick look at some of the interesting points that came out of a couple of the different press conferences that happened kind of over the weekend. So we'll start with the men's first. A reason to start with the men's, I think it's less open probably than the women's. The big story coming back into the men, well, it's twofold. One of the big stories is who's not there, and that's Carlos Alcaraz. Previously mentioned him in the introduction. The 19-year-old Spanish teenager who amazingly won the US Open in amazing fashion last September, has pulled out due to a injury he picked up in training. But the previous world number one is Novak Djokovic. He's now seated about fifth due to the events of last year, and he's back in Melbourne, and it's huge news due to what's happened last year and the fiasco that happened there. But he is definitely the man to beat, and a lot of questions around coming into the reception he would get by the Australian people after the Australian government essentially banned him from participating last year. But he played a charity match on Friday against Nick Kyrgios of Australia, and the crowd seemed to warm to him again, because this is his most successful tournament, and the Rod Laver Arena is his most successful arena. So he'll be definitely glad. If Rafa owns Paris, Novak certainly has owned Melbourne for quite some time. So he's the man to beat. He is carrying a small bit of an injury, we're hearing. Now he's openly expressed this, so it shouldn't be too much of a concern. And as I said, if it was a major issue, I don't think he'd have been playing the charity match on Friday evening there or thereabouts, because he's usually very protective of his body, as many of the top athletes are. So if we just take the first quarter or so, the actual world number one coming into this is Nadal, or the first seeded guy is Nadal, and he's actually got a very tough draw. So whereas Djokovic is actually seeded back in fifth, but that's partly because he missed a couple of tournaments last year, or he didn't participate in them. And he's actually got quite a nice draw. So Nadal is in the same quarter as Daniil Medvedev, who we bet in the final last year. Hubert Hurkacz, Francis Tiafoe, the American who had a wonderful US Open as well, Shapovalov, and Sebastian Korda, the brother of the Korda sisters, who are very good at the golf as well. So he's got a tough first round. Rafa, Jack Draper of Great Britain. He's a big, tall guy, very strong, and there's a lot of tennis journalists who really like what he's doing and give him a fighting chance. So you never know with Rafa. He could go all the way, and the injury concern doesn't seem to be as big as it was coming into last year, funnily enough, and he says he's feeling good, and he's probably lost a lot more matches recently than he usually would, but he said he's feeling good in the press conference. He feels vulnerable due to the matches he's lost, But he's at a different stage in life now as well, Rafa. He's a father now, and he said in his press conference that it's not the end of the world if he loses in the first round. So he's at a different stage in life, but you'll have to beat him. He'll never roll over, and we wish him the very best. And it'll be interesting to see how far he does go. But he's in a tough quarter. It'd be very hard for him to beat the likes of Medvedev if he's on form. And Medvedev will no doubt be hungry for revenge after last year's classic final. I think it went on for over 5 hours. And the likes of Korda and Shapovalov are all tough guys. They often get involved in long matches early on. But, contrary to common belief, I suppose, Nadal likes the long games as well because he can wear opponents out, and that's his style of game too. So even at the age of 36, it's the longer games still seem to suit him a bit, provided he's injury free. So if we go to the second quarter, then we've got Stefanos Tsitsipas will probably be the favourite to come through here. The Greek athlete, Felix Auger-Aliassime, the another Canadian. We've got an old favourite, Stan Wawrinka, as well, and Cameron Norrie. So that's a strong field as well. Auger-Aliassime has been in semi-finals and has featured around the big tournaments as well. So you'd have to play extremely well to beat him, and he usually shows up during the majors as well. And Stefanos Tsitsipas, I guess we mentioned him in the introduction. He's a guy kind of a few years ago you'd expected to surge through. That we thought he was going to be part of that next group that bet the top three a lot earlier than he did, but he's still very strong, and when his head is right, he plays really, really great tennis. Again, he's one of the older players now, that kind of period where he was young, and he's at a different stage of his career now, and he kind of referenced that in his press conferences and talked about the younger guys and seeing how obsessed they were in tennis. And it was a kind of theme as well with Danielle Collins on the women's side, who we'll talk about later, that there's more to life than just tennis. He's got a different perspective now on life and things, similar to Rafa as well, at a different stage. Different things are motivating him and stuff like that, but be really interesting to see what he does. So the third quarter, you've got Novak himself, we've got Nick Kyrgiakos, Rublev and Rune. So very, very strong quarter as well, but Novak heavily favoured to come out of that. He's good friends with Nick Kyrgiakos now, who he played in the Wimbledon final last year, so he's a home favourite as well. So the crowd seem to love him. He's a controversial figure, but the Australian crowd no doubt will get behind him, and that will be great to watch him and see what he does, how he shows up, because on any given day he's got the talent of pretty much anyone on the tour. And Rune is a young guy. He's seated in the top 10 now. I think he's 19 as well, and he's very confident young man, and he has experience beating one or two of the top players as well. So really watch out for him as the tournament progresses. And then the last quarter, we've got another Rude, Taylor Fritz, Zverev and Berrettini. Berrettini plays Andy Murray in the first round, so that will be an amazing game to watch, and it certainly doesn't feel like a first round. I'm sure Andy Murray or Berrettini for that time were too pleased to see the draw. And Zverev, the German, the last time we saw him was in the French Open quarterfinal against Nadal, where he had to pull out. That it was gone to 3 hours long, and it was only 3 sets in, and he was playing really, really great tennis at that time, and no one's really talking about him. And even in the press conference, there was no usually in press conferences there's the kind of English questions, and then players usually take questions from journalists in their native language, and there was no English speaking journalists at his press conference. Now I don't know if that was a scheduling issue or whatever, but just shows the kind of, he's under the radar, not a lot of people talking about him. And look, we don't know what shape he's in, but we don't know what a lot of players how they are, because this is their first major tournament of the season, and we're just coming off the off season, so there's a lot of uncertainty. But if he's anywhere like he was playing before he got injured, he is definitely a threat. And as I said, if he's going under the radar, he's certainly a dark horse. So yeah, and Berrettini, interesting to see what he does. I'm sure he's eager to get a major win as well. And but as I said, he'll have a tough first round. Andy Murray's as tough as you get, and he'll have to put on a great show. But Berrettini's big and strong, and he's very mentally. He's experienced in big games now as well. So we wish him the best, and we wish it's great to see Zverev back on the court and happy and healthy. So that's roughly it from the men's side. And now we will just talk about the women's. Now, in the women's side, like on the men's side, we do have a strong favourite, Iga Swiatek. But also after that, it's very open. A lot of the top players have beaten each other at different points, and a lot of time in majors, the seeds don't work out kind of as they should. So there's a lot of kind of lower seeds winning, and then some of the top seeds not performing, especially on in the early rounds, as you'd expect. So in the first quarter, we do have Iga Swiatek, we've Coco Gauff, and we've Danielle Collins and Rybakina as well. So that's a really strong quarter. Now Iga will of course be favoured. Coco Gauff feels like a veteran now, even though she's still in her teenage year. I think she's been on tour for about 4 years now, or thereabouts, and a lot of great experience, and said she was working a lot in the off season to improve her game. She's a potential meeting with Emma Raducanu, the British former US Open champion as well. Now Emma seems to be carrying an injury, so there was speculation as to whether she'd actually turn up and compete as well, because she pulled out of a game last week, but she is, and if they both win their games, they'll meet in a very fiery and very high profile second round game. Danielle Collins is very interesting. Another one, she lost in the final last year to Ash Barty, and she beat Iga last year as well, and her game suits the type of courts that they have in Melbourne. And again, not a lot of people are talking about her, considering she is the reigning runner-up, so to speak. I know that's not an official phrase, but really interested to see what she does. And she will face Iga at some point if they both kind of win and before they get out of their quarter. And she had a very interesting press conference as well. And apparently she doesn't look at the draw, Danielle Collins. So how much she knows about what's coming ahead of her and how true it is. No, I'm sure it is true, but I wonder, will people tell her? And all the talk around Iga, I wonder, will she be tipped off as well? But it's just interesting mindset to have. And she also talked about how she has other things in her life now other than tennis that keep her motivated and give her joy and stuff like that. So really interesting press conference if you get the chance, and seems kind of very relaxed about it. And I suppose you can look at that two ways in terms of someone who's not the end of the world if they win or lose. Might relax, and that might make them play their best shots and their best tennis, or else when they get stuck in the longer games, the motivation mightn't be there. But I think for Danielle Collins, we could see great tennis from her. In the second quarter, we've Jessica Pegula, the American, Sakkari, the Greek lady, Keys, Kvitova, and Azarenka is in here as well. Pegula and Sakkari have to be the two ones to look at here, although don't be surprised if we see Keys or Azarenka or Kvitova or in the women's draw. There'll be more people who are outside the top seeds that will no doubt pop up due to the nature of the tournament. Both Pegula and Sakkari had strong seasons last season, still looking to progress to kind of final majors, but they're knocking on the door, and they both had a strong finish to last season. And Sakkari in particular has made a lot of semi-finals now, and you feel like if she doesn't make a final soon, it might become a thing for her. And you really hope that she does, because she's a great athlete. She's great to watch. She's powerful. Her game kind of is good on most surfaces. She's not bad on any surface, although one surface in particular doesn't suit her more than the others, although she probably will prefer the hard course. So yeah, really interested to see what she does. And it was a great episode on her in the series that came out, and a great insight into her coach as well. So in the third quarter, we have Garcia, Kasatkina, Kudermetova, and Kontaveit, and Leylah Fernandez, among other people, who lost to Emma Raducanu in another teenager who lost to Emma Raducanu in the US Open 2 years ago. Garcia finished the season very, very strong last year. I suppose this time last year we didn't know too much about her, but she's had a very strong season, always improving, and on her day can beat most people, as can Pegula, as can Sakkari. When they're playing at their best, they can beat pretty much everyone. And then finally, the last quarter, we've Ons Jabeur, Ariana Sabalenka, we've Bencic, we've Sloane Stephens, we've the Spanish Muguruza. So another very, very strong quarter. Again, the likes of Ons Jabeur made 2 Grand Slam finals last year, will be looking to get over the line this year. Ariana Sabalenka has been in lots of semi-finals in different majors and will be eager to make a final this year. And both players, so they'll be due to meet obviously at the finish of their quarter if all goes well. So that will be a very fiery game. Sabalenka is probably one of the most entertaining athletes in any sport, in my opinion, to watch. She's all out. You can see the emotion as she navigates around, and a lot of unforced errors, but she goes for it. She's brave on her serve. She's brave on her second serve. And I suppose this time last year, she was suffering from the yips. She was having a big problem with her serve, and she still made it through a couple of rounds further than anyone would expect her when when you're struggling with your serve. Ons Jabeur has a different type of pressure. She's from Tunisia, and she's one of the first Tunisian women to have had this amount of success on tour, and she's got that pressure, but she carries it well. It means a lot to her, and she's got a great story as well. So a lot to root for there. And again, on Sabalenka would be a dream, and it's a final in itself, so it could end up being a quarter final. So so we're really excited to see that. Garcia in her press conference mentioned the kind of rhythm going into this, how there's a lot of unknowns. So it's very hard to predict the women's anyway. It's extremely hard to pick it in the Australian Open because we don't know what type of form players are in. And so Iga has to be the favourite, same with Novak. But there's so much more that can happen, and Grand Slams usually have drama. And similar to the men's side, there is a lot of stories around who's not here. Paula Badosa, the Spanish athlete who won Indian Wells, which is like one of the biggest tournaments outside the majors 2 years ago, and who's really improving all the time, had to pull out last minute. Anja Tomljanovic, another home player, she's from Australia, had to pull out after gaining an injury. And Naomi Osaka, who won it 2 years ago and is a big favourite in Australia, isn't playing, but she announced last week that she's pregnant, but that she does hope to return to the game. We haven't seen her in a while, but it's wonderful for her, and wonderful that she's still wants to get back at some point. So we'll miss those stars, and same with Alcaraz, but there's a lot to be excited about, and so we'll take it one day at a time. So tomorrow we'll be checking in most days if you're interested, and we'll be going through the highlights of the day and setting up the day tomorrow. I don't know what time I'll be doing it, and you'll just have to see. So tomorrow, Tsitsipas, Medvedev, Yannick Sinner, Nadal, Azarenka, Sakkari and Raducanu all get off to open their rounds. So we will see what happens. In terms of predictions, I won't give away too much. I'm not a betting man, so you shouldn't be taking betting advice from me. And I hope we see great tennis. And if there's any questions or anything else, do let me know. So we will see you in Melbourne. Thank you for listening.